Islam, Shalom, Hola, Aloha, Assalamu Alaikum, Osio, Bonjour. This is your brother Zach Bey, Indigenous American Moor, coming to you live and in full effect. Thank you for joining me once again. Please like, share, subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell if you'd like to be notified whenever I'm dropping and uploading new content. Leave a comment down below, interact with my content, and hit the thumbs up. It helps the algorithm. I really appreciate your viewership. I want to jump into a quick video. I saw something online just passing maybe a week or so ago, but it made me think. And I asked myself a question like, what if, certain elements were added to a story? How much would it change it? All right, so I want to go a little bit into what sparked my question on this situation. It was something simple, like, something people might see all the time, but it was one of those like small internet surveys when it shows like maybe 4 images and it's like, which one's the best, or which one do you rate the highest? All right, so it was something really simple. It was like Disney Pixar films. So the 4 lineup was, asking which movie is the best out of these 4. And it was like Shrek, it was Toy Story, it was Finding Nemo, and it was also The Lion King. All right, so just 4 Disney Pixar, 4 Disney films until Pixar and DreamWorks started. But I was thinking, like, what separates the number 1 rating to like from the number 4? Like, what elements? So personally, how I did it, I voted as number 1 as the best as the Lion King, because come on, it's a classic. And when I looked in the comments, most people agreed that Lion King was number 1 as a classic. I personally put Shrek as number 2 because it was like extremely funny from when the time it first came out. That one was like genuine laughter, so I would say that one would have been number 2. And then I stated Toy Story as number 3 because Toy Story was one of the older ones. It was a good film. I like watching it. It was fun. And then I rated Finding Nemo as last. Finding Nemo was just sad. It really wasn't too entertaining. It was about a fish that had a deformed fin, and it was like a European came and like abducted the fish out of the water. It was pretty sad. Put him in a fish tank and had to survive. And it was about about like a handicap or a disability. And of course, about like a potential colonizer or like a European coming and like throwing the balance or destroying the harmony of the situation, of the sea life of the main story. So that pretty much what made the storyline, a father fish finding his son, looking for his son who he cared for greatly. All right. After all of the brothers and sisters were already, I believe, eaten by like another fish or something like that. The eggs and stuff like that were eaten. I was the only one that survived. So, a father trying to protect his offspring, and eventually they had to go through. But I was like, I rated that one as number 1 because it was pretty sad. It had like some traumatic stuff in there, and I was like, yeah, this film kind of has some complex situations that children really wouldn't understand, but I guess it was a great story. But I started thinking exactly what element separated a movie that was as great and as classic as The Lion King to something that was a little more traumatic and not as, it's not as entertaining as, something that's like fun-loving and wholesome and like song-worthy as like The Lion King. I was like, what separates, the number 1 from the list and the bottom? And honestly, what I wrapped my mind around was the idea that if, all right, imagine this scenario. This is the what if that I came up with. What if in The Lion King, because the traumatic part was when Simba's father died, Mufasa, right? In the stampede, right? That's like the memorable part. But if that didn't happen, imagine if Disney had added a poacher, all right? Like a poacher, someone who hunts animals, wildlife, and like just for either sport or for the goods that they can get from selling the carcass, the skin, the fur, the tusk, the ivory from elephants, the ivory from rhinoceros horns, things of that nature, leopard fur, the pattern, jaguar fur, the pattern, all that. Poachers hunt and trap certain species of animals because their bones, their fur, different parts of their body are, valuable on the black market to sell. Okay, so just that quick breakdown. I was thinking, what if Lion King had added a poacher into the story? And I'm like, that would have like pretty much ruined the whole experience of the Lion King, right? And like adding a human element into it, and then that human element being a poacher, that would then be the tragedy that happened in the story, right? So I was like, yeah, that was definitely the separation from the top of the list that didn't have that, from the bottom of the list that had, from Finding Nemo. And that was just really interesting to me. And I started thinking about other films, like childhood films, animation films, and I was like, if one element was changed, say they added a colonizer or a poacher, or some human threat to these stories, and it will pretty much ruin them all for the most part. And some stories were pretty much made because it had this, some were impactful, I should say, because it had this element, this human element that posed a threat or a danger, or disrupted the balance, or the balance, the peace, and the harmony of the storyline of the film, right? The plot. So I made a small list, and it's four. One is Finding Nemo, of course, because the element of the Australian who, like the Australian who caught Nemo and put him in the fish tank. All right, that was like the tragedy. That was the outside element. That was like the colonizer element. All right. I also added Pocahontas in the film Pocahontas. All right. When the settlers came, when the colonizers came to try to settle the land, John Smith and his crew, and they were interacting with the Powhatan Nation, the Powhatan Confederacy, the nation. All right. So that element was, of course, the colonizers arriving and disrupting the harmony, the peace, and the balance of the world there. All right. They started cutting down the forest. They started building fires. They started hunting the animals and stuff like that with muskets. So it was disrupting the balance. So that's why the original people came to investigate to see what was going on. What was this new element that was added to this new element that is destroying the tranquility, the harmony, and the peace and the balance of the environment in the world there. All right, so that's just two. The Finding Nemo, and we see the element that was added. Pocahontas, this is that element that was added. I want to say Bambi, the old school film Bambi, pardon me, of the deer, Bambi the deer, right? We all know, and most people know what happened in Bambi. His mother was shot by a hunter, poacher, some type of European element or colonizer element that came into the forest and disrupted the balance with negativity, with destruction, with danger. All right, so that same element was added into Bambi, which made it a iconic and also like one of those tragic films that most people know from the story. Um, Another one that was kind of underrated. It also came out early 90s, I believe. Most people may not have heard of it, but it's one called Fern Gully, The Last Rainforest, I believe. I believe the last part is The Last Rainforest, but it's called Fern Gully. All right. And that one was about like a fairy sprite in the rainforest, and all of these fairies or little sprites are like they grow plants and the flowers and stuff like that, and they protect and preserve nature there. All right, so colonizers, a human crew, shows up with a machine to start deforestation, to start cutting down the rainforest, and it's producing toxic smog, smoke, fires, and it's destroying the rainforest and leaving it completely devastated, devastating everything in its wake. And it's also a European or colonizing human element that is bringing destruction, ruin, unbalance, destroying the peace and the harmony of the situation. All right, so I just like was thinking and pondering this list, um, that pretty much solidified that when it comes to peace, harmony, balance, tranquility, one rogue element can often destroy the entire balance of that ecosystem, of that environment, um, just completely destroy the foundation and uproot what has been a peaceful, a balanced, a tranquil landscape, um, or a narrative of a story, right? And when I think about this, I just think of not just the plants and the animals and the planet. I think about us humans, the original people on the planet, what has happened to us. And if you if you think about the examples I gave from each of these stories that had this element that was added, that was iconic, but at the same time, it kind of like made the story. Because if that element wasn't added into the story, it wouldn't have been much of a story. All right. So I want to go over that list again. Of course, it was Finding Nemo, it was Bambi, it was Fern Gully, and Pocahontas. All right. All those stories have like an element that was added, colonizing, some kind of destruction of the natural environment, the the death of an animal, or the capture of an animal, or of the main story, the main heroine, or the main character, the main protagonist of the story has to go through something that is foreign to them and overcome it in order to restore like a balance and the peace and the harmony and the tranquility of like the natural environment. All right. So this really made me think. I just wanted to throw like a what if out there. Like, what if a poacher was added to the Lion King? That story would be completely changed, but it would still have like the same end result as Mufasa being killed. All right. So if they added like the poacher or the Bambi element to the Lion King and made him be the victim of a poacher, and Simba seeing that, how that would have changed this whole story and the narrative. And I think that would have made the movie even more tragic than what happened just between Mufasa and Scar, right? So that's personally why I rated Finding Nemo at the last or the bottom of that list, just in passing. So it made me think about this entire concept of um, these iconic childhood films from the 90s, um, that that was really a staple in the childhoods of a lot of people who are my age. All right, so and I think that really says something, because I never thought about all these different narratives and storylines and how they all had this element. And I was like, dang, just adding that one element made these a tragedy, or a travesty. So I really just wanted to bring this concept into fruition, into mind, for us as a natural people to be wary of these rogue elements that come in and destroy the balance and the peace and the tranquility of our natural environment. All right, so we have to do everything to prevent this, because we notice the common link between the tragedy in these stories. It was some form of colonization. All right, so I really want to just close up here. I don't want to go too far into it, but just to put a concept into your mind, have you ever thought about this? Has this ever been something that might just cross your mind? All right, so once again, this is your brother Zach Bey. Indigenous American More. Wado. Peace.